I'm Van Sebastian, here with my co-host S.A. Baz Collins, bringing you this week's Written on the Edge, Season 11, Episode 21 interview. We'll be joined by Donna Minkowitz. She is returning to tell us about the republished memoir, Growing Up Golem. So if you haven't heard her previous interview with us, let's get to know our guest. Donna Minkowitz is a writer of fantasy, memoir, and journalism, lauded by Lilith Magazine for her fierce imagination and compelling prose. Science fiction great Terry Bisson called her writing rich and wild, dark and funny, as fearless as her legendary journalism, and as scary as a fairy tale. And she's proud that Kirkus has praised the defiant and playful energy of her work. Donna, welcome back to the show.
Hi, it's so nice to be here again.
Yay! So last time you were here, we discussed Donnaville, your internal world. But you hinted last time that you were republishing your memoir, Growing Up Golem, and now it's out.
Yes, now it's out. It originally came out 13 years ago in
Hmm.
2013. And, I would have liked if it had gotten a little more play, like all writers would like. So I'm
Hmm.
really thrilled that Indolent Books decided to put it out again in a new edition. So I get to talk about it more.
Excellent. Well, and I don't know, I'm seeing a huge interest in memoir again, so I'm here to tell people about it.
That is awesome.
And having had the luxury of reading it, and thank you for that copy, I can say that your internal world meets your prose again to cover all topics of life, dark and happy. And when I was reading it, I read a passage to my husband, and he's like, "You know what? That reminds me of a show." He's like, "What show was that? What show was that?" Ally McBeal, where
Oh,
where Ally will be talking to somebody, but suddenly you're in her mind and don't realize it at first.
right.
Yeah, your prose reminded him of that genre.
Um, yeah. I mean, it's my life.
Hmm.
When I was in my early 20s, I became a queer reporter for the Village Voice, which was one of the first places in the country that, like wasn't a straight up gay LGBTQ magazine that covered queer people and had openly queer reporters.
Hmm.
So the book
Their office was
is
just down the street from Stonewall, wasn't it?
Yeah.
it moved several times, but yeah, in one
I know that when
incarnation it was
when
just
Stonewall happened, they said the guy who reported on it initially, he said he was literally down the street from them.
yeah, that's right. That's right. In my day, I mean, they were two offices, two different ones in
Oh,
my day,
okay.
and they were not a far walk from Stonewall, but not just down the street. Um, but um, but a lot of it is set in my mind,
Hmm.
and we can talk about the golem, I guess, to talk
Well,
about how the book talks about my mind. We have to talk about the golem.
right. Well, so I'm glad you mentioned the start of your career when you were in your 20s, because that's how the book opens, is your mom giving you that doll.
Oh yes.
And I was like, "Oh my God." So, for folks who obviously haven't read it yet, explain that scene because it's like one of the opening scenes.
Well, um, my mom was a very creative person, but she was one of those parents whose creativity kind of takes up the whole room. And it's like she's not putting the kids' art on the refrigerator. She's putting her art everywhere. I mean, nothing, believe me, nothing wrong with artist memoirs, but can I can I read that section with the
Yeah, of
Donna
course.
doll?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I mean, this is basically about being subsumed by my mother's expressions of herself in many ways. All right. My my mother loved to make things. One day when I was 32, my mother created a giant half life-size doll that looked just like me. This is absolutely true. Digression, the doll is now in my basement in a
Oh, you
plastic
you
bag.
kept it?
I did, I did keep it. I didn't want to throw it out. Um, it had yarn hair the same color and kink as mine, and real corduroy pants, just like the ones I wear. My mother called it the Dyke Donna doll. Mom was very pro-gay and lesbian, so she always felt very happy using words like dyke. The doll wore a stripy red shirt like a circus performer, along with real removable bright red booties made of felt and extravagantly long curling eyelashes that my mother drew in by hand quite lovingly. It had big red apple blush marks on its cheeks like Pinocchio, as I have always seen him drawn. It stood a discomfiting 3 feet tall, and I myself am only 5'2". My mother gave it to me as her gift to keep in my tiny apartment. I had to keep it under my bed because I couldn't bear to see it sitting in my chair, but I felt like I was hiding a child away there without food or anyone to talk to.
Yep. And that sets the scene for how you see yourself in the memoir.
Yes, in many ways, I feel like her creation, like her artwork.
Hmm.
Um, she told my sisters and me growing up that she had learned how to do traditional Jewish magic from her grandparents. And we believed her. She was a very powerful figure, and it took a long time to stop believing that she could do magic. So the conceit of the book is that instead of giving birth to me, she creates me through Jewish magic as her own personal golem. And a
Hmm.
golem is a creature from legend. It's made of clay that's kind of animated, and it looks like a person, and it can do stuff like a person, but it is not human, and it is made entirely to serve.
Was the famous one in Prague? I'm trying to remember.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yes, the famous one was in Prague that a rabbi created to protect the Jewish community from pogroms. But in the famous story, the golem goes out of control and
Yep.
starts killing everyone. So the maker of the golem has to put it down, which is also an anxiety in the book.
Hmm. Yes, it is. Um, the another topic, and this is a spoiler warning, or at least a flag for readers. The book also covers some abuse.
Yes, absolutely.
Are you comfortable talking about that with folks?
Yeah, sure.
Because it certainly shaped who you became.
Yeah. There's several different kinds of abuse in the book. Um, my father was violent, and that certainly affected me. And my mother uh, perpetrated a kind of sexual abuse that we don't talk about a lot because thankfully she didn't touch me, but uh, she kind of uh, said very sexually inappropriate things while showing her off her own body and inviting my sisters and me to tell her how sexy she was, and talking to us about sexual material a lot, commenting on our own bodies. And you know, it, it was, it was hard for me. Yeah, for
Hmm.
sure. Um, and I think abuse by mothers is not talked about a lot.
Right.
And uh, being a lesbian and having to confront that, my attraction to women, has some history or shared connections with this experience with my mother, and with all of its confusion and difficulty, a lot of pain and shame. It's not an easy thing to have all those feelings, um, connected to just your experience of sexuality and your body.
Right. Right. And you had even previously mentioned how powerful she was. Now add this into it. In the memoir, she continues to speak to you slash control you from beyond the grave, like after her death.
Yes, in a sense. I would say.
Well, because she's laid all the groundwork for this in your mind.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, she would say things like, I'm God. um, I mean, yes, she was the most powerful figure in my family, which, even though my father was violent, many people like think if there's a violent dad, that must mean he's the figure with the power, but he actually was subservient to her. Um, uh, and my mother encouraged my sisters and me to make fun of him and be nasty to him, which um, created a very weird dynamic with his violence. It's as though my mother was emotionally abusive to him, and he responded by being violent towards me.
Right, right. So all of these elements we've talked about, you feeling like your mother created you, her presence in your life, his presence, how he was treated, they are all pieces of alchemy. What is amazing about your memoir is how you find yourself. After dealing with all of that, you find yourself.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. That is what the book is about. Um, Finding a way to be human. When you
Hmm.
grow up really feeling not human, you're not really worthy of being called human, you don't deserve to be, you don't deserve to have the same rights that real human beings do. And a lot of the way I found myself was by figuring out how to have relationships with other people. Because also, I mean, growing up as a quote unquote golem, um, the narrator of the book really can't conceive of equal relationships. Like any relationship seems like either she will have to abuse or be abused, essentially.
Hmm.
Um,
There's a power dynamic. It's what you grew up knowing.
yeah. So in figuring out how to, I mean, I so profoundly did not want that. Um, when I became an adult, I was determined. I mean, especially to have love relationships that were not like that, but also friendships. And it was a long journey, frankly.
Hmm.
Um, but I did figure it out.
Baz,
Well,
do you have a question?
yeah, with all of that, because that's quite a lot to cover. I people might be put on think, God, this is, a lot of trauma and stuff, that I'm dealing with. But does it have like a way that lifts the reader so that when they're immersed in it, it gives them sort of a happy ending?
Yes. Um, there's various kinds of lifting that I deliberately put in the book. It's funny, for one thing.
Hmm.
Um, so
100%.
so some of the most difficult scenes, like, oh my God, this is screamingly funny. Um, uh, and one reason I have the fantasy elements in there at all is to try to, I mean, give the reader an escape. If we're talking about golems and elves and magic, it's like, well, we're not talking that much about trauma. Um, but I'm happy to say there is a happy ending. I actually, they get a bad rap these days, but I'm a big believer in happy endings. Um, they are my favorite kind of stories for sure.
Yep.
And I think that's important
Beautiful.
because I think people who read a memoir, if they sense there's trauma in it, I don't think they're necessarily going to bypass it. But I think if it offers some sort of light or some sort of awareness that you walk away with, a happy ending can be many things. That I think that in and of itself can draw people to the work. Don't you think?
Yeah, totally. You know, Tolkien, who's one of my favorite writers, he coined this term eucatastrophe, like a good catastrophe, which he saw as the thing in, in Lord of the Rings when, suddenly the ring is destroyed. Um, and he saw that as really important to his work. And for me, it's similar. I mean, what's the use of going through the whole journey and struggle if you don't get any joy at the end?
True, true.
Yeah.
And I think that it's one of humanity's forms of resilience is the humor that's born in those traumatic moments that give you a way through it. You know what I mean? It kind of is the candle in the proverbial cave to say, here's the way out, from any kind of darkness.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of embarrassment in the book, and that's some of the humor. I mean, there's just a lot of cringy moments.
That's why we
Um,
have Fail Army. Everybody loves a good cringe.
yeah, yeah. I mean, uh, being a 23-year-old lesbian, I'm terrified of women, but I really want them. And I'm particularly terrified of women who are actually attractive, women who are sexy. They're so they're so terrifying. And navigating trying to approach them, or maybe not. Maybe I'll just date women who aren't that cute because they're less scary.
That's one way of looking at it.
One
Right.
way.
Right. So I want friends, fans, and listeners to know that this book was nominated as both a Lambda Literary Award and Publishing Triangle's Judy Grand Nonfiction Award. So when you pick up this memoir, you are picking up a quality story, 100%. And with its republication, it's available everywhere. Donna, do you have anything else you want to tell folks about it that we didn't think to ask?
Um, there's a lot of sex in the book. Um, yes. So I'm happy about that. I like including
Donna got her groove
sex.
on.
I like including sex in quality literature. It should not be excluded.
Hmm.
So I'm happy that that's there. There's also kind of, you know, dirt about the Village Voice back in the day. Um, it was a very strange place to work, although in many ways it was wonderful for a writer because, we really got to write with our own styles and could be very personal. And this was back in the day when journalism was all supposed to be staid and never give opinions and anything like that. So the Village Voice was really unique for the time.
Nice. Love it. Are you ready for our get to know you questions?
Yes, I am.
Take it away,
Okay.
Baz.
Before we get to that, just a quick moment to say if you like what we're doing here, interviewing people like Donna, please like, subscribe, feed the algorithm. You know what we have to do in social media. So please do all of that. It helps us tremendously, and we do love you for it. If you want to support us financially, that's also welcome, very humbly welcomed. It is. You can go to patreon.com/rope podcast or buymeacoffee.com/rope podcast, or you can join our memberships, which are now on YouTube, and it's just 99 cents a month, less than a buck, because we know times are tough for everybody. So we wanted to provide an option that is much more affordable. So definitely avail yourself of that if you're so inclined. And again, we would humbly thank you for it. So with all of that out of the way, let's get into the weeds with Donna. What book, film, or piece of art has had the biggest influence on your writing style?
Well, I thought a lot about this, and I have to say the novel Kiss of the Spider Woman by Madeline
Oh, good
Lee.
choice.
I love that novel. I read it in college. I have to say, I don't particularly like the film or the Broadway show. So sorry to people who love it, but if you like the book, you
They
also
are
love
different things. Yeah, yeah.
it. Yes. But the book, it's so beautiful. Um, it is very, very queer. And the way it influenced my writing style is it introduces this real dichotomy between like beautiful, sensual stuff and even tender love. And what if you get that from some unsavory source, like, right-wing politics? And the book just keeps putting in your face, like, um, God, I don't even know how to describe it, but uh, it's one of my favorite queer books, and it gets at a lot of the contradictions that have been important in my work.
Excellent. I love that. Okay, what fictional or historical character would you invite to march with you at a pride parade?
Okay, I would have to say Emily Dickinson.
Oh, excellent choice.
No, Emily, okay, she was an amazing poet. And there's this ridiculous reputation she has that she was this, virginal retiring woman who never left her room. But her poems are full of these very sexy poems to women. She seems pretty queer to me. And yes, I would love to march with her at a pride parade.
I love that. I really do. Okay, if you or any other characters that you've written about had to survive a gay bar karaoke night, what song would you or they belt out?
All right, so I will make it the protagonist of this book,
Okay.
who is me, basically. And she would sing Ring My Bell by
Ah,
Anita Ward. One of my favorite songs, and it's in the book too. One of my gay male friends kind of wins my heart and impresses me by singing it on a bus in the book.
love it, love it, love it. Okay. What's a place, real or imagined, that feels like home to you and why?
I would say the world of Rika Aoki's novel, Light from Uncommon Stars. I don't know if you guys have read that book. I love it. It came out, I don't know, between 5 and 10 years ago. It's an amazing book. It's fantasy, but it's set in our world, and she's a trans author. Um, the book is very trans and queer, but her, the world in that book, um, the relationships are so tender, and some of it revolves around these aliens, these aliens led by an Asian woman. She's an extraterrestrial, but she's also Asian and queer, and she disguises her spaceship as a donut shop. Okay, in Southern California. I know this sounds really weird, but the world of that book is so uh, comforting and tender, and it really feels like home to me.
I love that. I really do. Okay.
Mm.
What's the strangest or most unexpected place you've ever found for inspiration for a work of yours?
All right. Well, that was an easy one. Um, the far right and the Christian right. Um, as a journalist, I used to go kind of in disguise to Christian right things a lot. And in the first Trump term, I actually went in disguise to write about some white nationalist conventions. And I mean, it was horrible and it was scary, but it was incredibly interesting to be with these people in person and talk to them and see what they were like, which I mean, which was awful but very compelling.
Yeah, I would think for, a Jewish woman, it would be really, really kind of like uh, hard to get through it and maintain the cover. You know what I mean?
Yes, I mean, I did have an element of like I'm getting one over on you, like a kind of a trickster thing.
That's a good way to approach it. All right. Well, which themes or motifs do you find yourself returning to again and again in your work?
Well, kind of like I was talking about earlier, uh, connection and relationship and how to have relationships that, that are equal. I mean, how how to have it so one partner's not on top and the other's on the bottom. Yeah. I mean, uh, on relationship terms. Another theme, which is related, is kind of toxic nurturing,
Mm.
um, which I would say describes the mother in this book. She is very, in some ways, she's really very nurturing. Um, she absolutely nurtures my mind and my writing, and gives me wonderful books. Um, Lots of wonderful stuff, but it is made complicated by the toxic stuff. That's part of it. So kind of the theme of what do you do with a relationship like that? How do you separate out the loving part from the hurtful part?
Right. Right.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, finally, the last question. What's a piece of LGBTQ plus culture, music, film, art, or history that never fails to inspire you?
Ooh, I had some written down, but I wasn't thinking of history. Well, all right. I will just have to go for the Anne Bannon novels. These were lesbian pulp fiction from the 50s,
Mm-hmm.
set in New York City, written by a lesbian named Anne Bannon. One of the main characters was a big butch from the heartland named Bebo Brinker, who takes the train to New York so she can be a lesbian. Um, and it's fantastic, these books. And there's lots of sex, and there's lots of women finding each other in the bars of Greenwich Village.
That's excellent. I love that. And I love all those, especially the Pulp Fiction
Yeah,
covers and all those, all from that era. They're just gold.
Yep.
they're great books, and you can get them today.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, you made it
Nice.
through our list. Bravo.
Woohoo. So, what are you working on next? What's up?
Well, I am not sure in terms of big stuff, but for little stuff, you know, um, I have done a bunch of storytelling in my time. And what I'm working on right now, I mean, I especially like the, traditional storytelling, like myths and fairy tales. And I'll be this week telling a queer version of the story of Dionysus and the Bacchae in in 8 minutes, um, here in Beacon, New York.
Wow.
Neat.
Love that.
So, what social should people be following to get these updates?
They should be following Instagram at Donna Minkowitz.
Hmm.
They can find me on Facebook. I also have a Substack called Rough Tongue. And I am on Blue Sky at Donna Minkowitz. And I highly recommend Blue Sky, which is an alternative to Twitter.
Yes, agreed. It has been great for writers, and I need to find your account on that so we can
Yeah,
connect
me
you.
too.
All right, Donna, any final words of wisdom?
Words of wisdom. You know, it's a hard time for writers out there, which I guess makes sense because it's a hard time for all of us in America right now.
Mm-hmm.
Capitalism is grinding everyone into dirt. So, uh, get out and be with people and make art and have joy and support each other.
Beautiful. folks, we'd like to extend a huge thank you to Donna Minkowitz for joining us today. Donna, thank you. And thank you for keep putting your art out in the world, telling your stories, and keeping that light alive. You're amazing.
Thank you so much.
All right, folks, we at Written on the Edge are proud to introduce you to new media by queer content creators. If you enjoy learning about new artists or hearing our thoughts on entertainment media, please like and subscribe so you get the alerts for new episodes. Our show was produced by Rogue Ravens Media. For disclaimers, links to social media, our listen stations, or to sign up as a guest, visit www.ropodcast.com. Tune in next week for your queer media fix.
Ciao for now.
What's there? Closing time. The bums rush in melody, dear.